Car Obsession is proudly supported by Carly and Draggy. Check out the video description to find out the latest discount codes.
It's an interesting looking thing, isn't it? What this is the brand new second generation Kia Niro. Like its bigger brother, the Sportage, I do think the outside styling may be somewhat divisive to some, but you know what? I like it. In fact, there's some pretty interesting features on this car. For starters, you have these daytime running lights which have been designed to look like a heartbeat. Interesting. The rear reflectors also share the same inspiration. Speaking of the rear, you have these sleek boomerang style rear lights, and if I come back a bit further, of course, you have the C-pillar. Now normally I wouldn't waste my time talking about such things, but the C-pillars on the Niro are quite interesting because they allow airflow through them, which improves aerodynamics. In fact, the Niro has a co-drag efficient of just 0.29. Clever stuff. Some of you may remember the HabaNiro concept car from 2019, and whilst this car isn't quite as, let's say, adventurous as the concept car, look carefully and you can see some design cues have been handed down. One thing that hasn't been handed down though are the Lamborghini style doors, which, let's be honest, would be a nightmare in your local multi-storey car park and would never have got past the accountants anyway. Instead you get doors which are much more conventional. Like the exterior, the interior of the Kia Niro is a more toned down affair compared to the HabaNiro concept. For many, that'd be a good thing because the HabaNiro concept, the inside was a bit, well, red. Now, although this is a much more civilized place to be, it's still pleasant. You get a nice, pleasant mix of materials, a lot of which are sustainable and better for the environment. For example, the headlining is made using recycled wallpaper, which is a good thing, of course. And some of the materials used for the seats, some of them are crafted using eucalyptus leaves. Now, at this point, you may think, well, how can Kia do that and fit a leather steering wheel? Well, this isn't real leather. Before you question it, you can tell it's not real leather because it has a different texture. It's not quite as kind to your fingertips. It's rougher, but it is, of course, kinder to the environment. So yeah, I've got no complaints there. You have this nice big display here. You've got the digital driver's display in front of you, and you have a 10.25 inch touchscreen as well. In fact, let me fire the car up so you can hopefully see them. We'll need to turn the car on. Otherwise, the engine hasn't come on yet because it's in the EV, of course. So yes, 10.25 inch touchscreen. You've also got the large digital display in front of you, and this rather snazzy control panel down here, which serves two functions. The first of which is your climate control. Yes, okay, it is touch sensitive. I would rather have physical buttons, but I would prefer this compared to having it buried in the touchscreen, which I hate, to be honest. The other function, if you hit this little arrow here, you get these shortcut buttons for the touchscreen. So I really like that feature. It's given the car less clutter, and I personally have found it pretty easy to use on the move as well. So yeah, pretty good, Kia. In regard to storage, you can just about, with some encouragement, fit in a 1.5 litre bottle into this door bin, but yes, you will need to encourage it a little bit. There we go, that's the 1.6 engine roaring into life. Yes, getting the bottle in does need a bit of persuasion. You have a wireless phone charging pad which comes as standard on the 3 and 4 trim levels. I don't believe you get that on the 2 trim level. 2 cup holders in the middle, bit of extra storage here and some underneath the centre armrest. You do have this trim piece which can be taken out if you want to open up this storage area, but it's probably best that you leave it in to stop things rolling about whilst you're driving. And of course, last but not least, you do get a glove box which offers a decent amount of space. Getting a good comfortable driving setup is easy. The steering wheel, as you can hopefully see, has got a good level of adjustment, and the driver's seat, as standard, is electronically adjustable. You don't get a memory function, no, which is a bit disappointing. So if you are sharing this car in your family, which, let's face it, is quite likely, let's say you and your spouse are different heights, it may be a bit of a faff having to continually change the driving position, but I'm sure you'll get used to it with time. Apart from that small niggle, apart from that, I don't have any complaints in the front of the Niro. Even though the driver's seat is set for my height, 6'2", as I've mentioned, as you will soon see in a few moments, I've got plenty of space in which to step into, and I can really make myself comfortable. So as you can hopefully see, I've got plenty of knee room and leg room is ample. On top of that, I can fit my feet underneath the driver's seat, which is set to its lowest, which helps with comfort. Headroom is also very agreeable. I've got plenty to play with, so again, no complaints there. So if you happen to be a taller person than me, fear not, you should be able to get comfortable in the back of the Kia Niro. Now, could you fit 3 adults in the back of here? No, it would be too much of a squeeze, and you've also got a tunnel running down the middle of the car, so the middle passenger would need to straddle that. So yes, it wouldn't be very comfortable. If you're more concerned about carrying children, of course it goes without saying that you get ISOFIX points, although they are a little bit buried at the back of the seat, so finding them may be a bit of a faff, but once you've found them and once the ISOFIX base is in place, you should have no concerns or problems. Moving on to practicality, the door bins are of a good size. You can fit in a 500 milliliter bottle with no issues. You have airplane style map pockets, a hook on one side, and a center armrest with 2 more cup holders, like so. You've also got ventilation in the rear, a power outlet, and 2 Type-C USB ports, one of which are on either of the seats. So yeah, the back of the Kia Niro, I've got no complaints with. When it comes to boot space, the Kia Niro offers 451 litres, which is actually 15 more than before. This is thanks to the relocation of the 12-volt battery, which used to live in here, the offside rear wheel arch, but now lives underneath the rear seats alongside the main battery for the hybrid system. There is a caveat: 451 litres is for the hybrid version. If you go for the plug-in hybrid, well, you have to make do with 348 litres. That is down to the extra room needed underneath the boot floor for the plug-in hybrid system. Interestingly, the EV actually has the largest boot out of the 3 Niros and can offer 475 litres. If you want more space in the hybrid, you can of course fold down the 60/40 rear seats to give you 1,445 litres, and the rear seats pretty much fold flat as well. As standard, you do get a height adjustable boot floor for better flexibility and versatility, but even with the boot floor set to its highest, there's still a bit of a load lip in and out of the boot, so loading or unloading bigger, heavier items may be a little bit of a faff. Now, some of you may have spotted this somewhat cheap, flimsy, thin parcel shelf. There is a reason for this, and it's quite similar to the one fitted to the Ford Puma. For starters, it saves weight because it's so light. The other reason is because it's made of fabric, it can mould and can be manipulated around larger items in the boot, and if and when you don't want to use it, it'll be easier to store because it's so flat you can just pop it on the bottom of the boot. Nice and easy. You can't do that with a normal parcel shelf, can you? So although it does seem cheap and flimsy, there's a good reason for it. Supplying the power to the Niro Hybrid is a 1.6 litre naturally aspirated petrol, which is of course helped out by a 32 kilowatt electric motor. Combined, they produce 141 horsepower along with 265 newton meters of torque. If you prefer that in pound-feet, I will of course drop a subtitle below. Now, before I go any further, my hay fever is quite bad today. That's why I've got my sunglasses on, because my eyes are quite red and itchy, and I'm starting to get a bit bunged up. So if I become somewhat incoherent or mumbly, I can only apologise. I'm doing the best I can, guys. Anyway, move things on. Now, I will touch upon performance in due course, but I'm sure you're much more concerned or interested in the running costs, fuel economy. So for this trim level, the 3, oh, that's a nasty pothole, Kia states on a combined run, you can expect up to 61.4 mpg, and this emits 105 grams. Oh, that pothole triggered the hazards to come on. Strange. Anyway, where was I? Yes, and this emits 105 grams per kilometre, meaning for the first year of VED, you'll be required to pay £175. Now, in my experience, looking down at my trip computer, I've been getting 44 mpg, which some of you may argue isn't fantastic, but in this car's defence, I drove this around town with minimal traffic, and I actually got low 70s. That was of course thanks to the EV mode. So at certain points, when there's enough charge in the battery, the car will slip into EV mode and can be driven in that mode for a short period of time. Speaking of which, this vehicle has got something called a green zone drive mode, or it may have, I may have got that slightly wrong. In essence, the car is able to use your driving patterns and information from the sat-nav, and when you're driving past, let's say, schools or hospitals, it will shut off the engine and go into EV only mode to, of course, make this a no emissions vehicle. You can manually input your own green zones if there's any particular areas where you don't want the engine to run. Clever stuff, I like it. Now, to carry on to running costs, in regard to insurance, for the 2 trim level, that is insurance group 20, whereas the 3 and the 4 are insurance group 21. If you're thinking about getting this as a fleet car, the EV has a BIK rating of just 2%, the plug-in hybrid has a BIK rating of 8%, whereas the hybrid, has a BIK rating of, I believe, 26%. Now, what about finance? How much will it cost you per month? Now, this is a representative example for the 4 trim level, the range topper. If you put down a deposit of £5,000 with a £1,000 dealer contribution, over the course of 36 months with an APR of 7.9, you will be paying around £470. Now, of course, if you go for a lower spec and put down a bigger deposit, that monthly cost will come down. In regard to performance, this will hit 62 miles per hour in a rather leisurely 10.8 seconds, and the top speed is 100 miles per hour, but in EV only, the top speed is actually 74, which for the UK roads is plenty. Now, if you're looking for a family SUV / crossover that's engaging to drive, then you want to look elsewhere. Don't get me wrong, this is competent in the corners and relatively sure-footed, but it's not fun in the slightest. To be fair to Kia, in their press release, the word dynamic came up once, and that was to describe the styling. Comfort and comfortable were more regular appearances, so it's clear that this car is more designed for comfort than dynamism, which isn't a complaint. I'm just saying, if you want your medium small SUV to be rewarding to drive, then this probably won't be the car for you. On the plus side, yeah, the damping is softly sprung. It flows over the tarmac rather nicely, even more so at speed. It can be a little bit jiggly at low speeds, but once you get it up to speed like I am now, yeah, it's almost gliding over the tarmac. It's impressive. When it comes to refinement, the Niro hybrid does well. The 1.6 engine can be a little bit bassy when you have it under load, but through normal driving, you don't really notice it. There's a slight rasp from the 1.6 litre unit when it switches from EV to the engine power, but nothing that's really going to detract from the experience. For the new Niro hybrid, Kia has worked hard by putting more insulation and padding into certain areas on the vehicle to combat engine noise and road noise. At 70 miles per hour, using my sound meter, I recorded a noise of 70.3 decibels. So yeah, pretty good. One of the lowest I've recorded. Pretty good going for a family SUV. Now, one complaint I do have from the driving experience are the brakes. They're numb. The feedback through the pedal, it just doesn't really give you much indication of what the brakes are doing when you first dab the pedal. When you apply a bit more pressure and depress it more, yes, you can feel the pad starting to bite onto the discs, but when you first drive the car, it can be a little disconcerting because you hit the brakes and then, oh, there we go. Yeah, it's difficult. I would say the brakes can be a little bit tricky to modulate. if you're not used to them. Now, I've driven a fair few hybrids and EVs, and to be honest with you, I have a similar complaint for almost all of them. So this issue isn't exclusive to the Niro hybrid, although there does seem to be a bit more of an issue in this car. The 6-speed DCT works well enough, not the most seamless transmission that I've had in a car, but yeah, it works effectively for most owners. Well, I'd say for the majority of owners, they'd be very happy with it. You can't take control of it yourself. These paddles you see on the steering wheel aren't for the gearbox, they're actually to train to the strength of the regenerative braking. So the left paddle makes it stronger and the right paddle makes it weaker. If you actually hold the left paddle, you get the maximum amount of regenerative braking, and that of course feeds more power back into the 1.3 kilowatt hour battery. Ergonomically, everything is laid out well. Okay, the left hand side of the touchscreen may be a little bit of a stretch for some, but I've had no complaints. I find operating the dual mode control panel down here for your shortcuts and your climate control, using it on the move is pretty simplistic. I would prefer physical dials, of course, but I think this is a decent compromise, so thank you, Kia. Now, on the Niro hybrid, you do actually have a choice of driving modes. You have Eco, which I have it in now, and to be honest, I have it in most of the time, and you have Sport, which I would argue is quite redundant in this car, because I wouldn't say it's sporty in any shape or form. It does make the engine a bit more responsive, makes the steering a bit heavier, but yeah, I've never really felt the urge to put this car into sport mode. It just doesn't match the characteristic of the car, if you ask me. In regard to visibility, yeah, visibility is good, nothing really to report. I can see out the back just fine, the rear windows are of a good size, door mirrors are of a good size, and I've got blind spot monitoring as well if I so need it. Seeing over the shoulder, I've got no complaints with. It is a larger car than its predecessor, but at no point have I found it difficult to park. Of course, you've got front and rear parking sensors, as well as a reversing camera as well. So yeah, I doubt you'll have many difficulties parking this car.
Let's finish with price and specification. The Kia Niro hybrid is available in 3 trim levels, 2, 3 and 4. The base model 2 is priced from £29,660 with standard features including 8-inch touchscreen, 16-inch alloys, LED headlights, rear parking sensors, reversing camera, forward collision alert and smart cruise control, to name a few. The mid-range 3, as tested here, starts from £31,910. This adds 18-inch alloys, heated front seats, heated steering wheel, wireless phone charger, cloth and vegan leather seats, 10.25-inch touchscreen with inbuilt navigation, keyless entry, front parking sensors, rear privacy glass, highway driving assist and blind spot monitoring. And of course, that leaves the range-topping 4, which is priced from £34,660. This adds a larger digital driver's display, remote smart parking assist, ventilated front seats, sunroof, vegan leather upholstery, head-up display, relaxation front seats, heated rear outer seats, Harman Kardon sound system, and parking collision avoidance assist.
So to sum up the Kia Niro hybrid, it's comfortable, practical, spacious, loaded with kit and pretty frugal as well. So for a family SUV, you can't really want for much more. The only downside I would say is that it is a little bit boring to drive and it lacks a bit of engagement that I would like. I know it's not a hot hatch, it's a family SUV, but I would want a bit more flavour from the drive bit, but this is rather vanilla. Anyway, should you buy, try or avoid the Kia Niro hybrid? I'm stuck between try and buy. I'm going to go with try. Of course, there are many cars like this on the market. There is a plethora of SUVs, so I would say do your shopping around, see what suits you, but if you're looking for something comfortable, spacious and practical, then go for this. And don't forget, of course, with this being a Kia, you get a 7-year warranty as well. Speaking of Kia, a big thank you to them for loaning me this car for the week, and of course a big thank you to you guys watching this video. I do hope you have found it useful or helpful. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.